politics. The Times reports this morning that the Prime Minister is refusing to proscribe the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, despite the hundreds and perhaps thousands who've died in protests in Iran. Sir Keir Starmer says it would have no effect on the group. The military outfit was created by Ayatollah Khomeini after the Iranian Revolution in 1979 to uphold and enforce his rule. It's a designated terrorist group in the US, Canada, Australia, Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. Prescribing it here would make it illegal to support the group in the UK. So why have ministers stopped short? I'm joined by legal expert Joshua Rozenberg KC. Good morning.
Good morning, Kate.
So the biggest question, why has the government not done this?
Well, number 10, as reported by The Times, points to something said by Sir Richard Moore, the former head of MI6. He said the danger is that something like this is mostly about us feeling better about ourselves, is not actually something that will have an impact on the IRGC, precisely because, and he then explains the legal reasons, which is the second point. But it's clearly a political decision in the sense that this is something that the Prime Minister has said won't achieve anything, but it does also run into legal problems.
And what are those legal problems before we get into the ethics and the question around the point of proscription?
We know, of course, that bodies like Hamas and Hezbollah, Middle Eastern terrorist groups, have been banned, have been proscribed, even though they have a certain amount of backing from the states where they are based. But the point about the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is that it is actually, as you explained in your introduction, an arm of the state, a state-backed group, an Iranian military or security force that reports direct to the country's leaders. And when the government asked the independent reviewer of terrorism, Joshua Rozenberg KC, to look at this some 6 months ago, he said that the Terrorism Acts, the legislation under which you can ban an organisation, the Terrorism Acts were never designed to regulate the conduct of states or state entities, and that looking to the Terrorism Act for a way of banning state bodies is quite simply shopping in the wrong department.
So how have other countries, including the US, Canada and Australia, got around that issue? Because their legislation must run along similar lines to ours.
Well, they must have implemented specific legislation. That's certainly something the United Kingdom could do. Indeed, the then Home Secretary said 6 months ago, this is Yvette Cooper, we're committed to taking forward Jonathan Hall's recommendations. We'll draw up new powers modelled on counter-terrorism powers. We will create a new power of proscription to cover state threats. Now, that's what the government said 6 months ago. It hasn't yet done that.
Which I suppose brings us to the question, what is the point of proscription? I mean, it's most recently been used in the case of Palestine Action, and lots of people have very strong views on whether that was a good idea or a bad one. I mean, if we're arguing that we should proscribe that particular group but not the IRGC, and we've heard the legal arguments for that, what's the point in proscription at all?
The point of proscription is to stop people supporting terrorist organisations. Now, without going into that issue, which is we're awaiting a decision from the courts on whether the government acted lawfully in banning Palestine Action, and as you say, there are different views on that. Nevertheless, that is something which it's alleged that people in the United Kingdom have done, although you might say all they've done is hold up signs saying that they support an organisation that was banned. And the reasons for banning it from the government was that the organisation is accused of attacking a military base and attacking buildings and so on. So there are arguments against and for banning an organisation which has supporters here in the United Kingdom. The point about the IRGC is, although it may well have supporters here in the United Kingdom, they're people who are actually employed by it and work for it because they are paid by by Iran. And so you wouldn't actually make any difference. Those people are going to carry on working for the IRGC, whether the organisation is banned or not.
Can I ask you about the shadow fleets? It's a story on the front page of the Times today. The headline is UK troops set to swoop on Kremlin shadow fleet. It's the argument that the government has found a legal way to do this and to intercept these vessels which ship oil across the seas. We've seen most recently the Trump administration intervening on the Venezuelan vessels. What's the legal case being set out here?
The government says that under maritime law, every ship, every vessel must be registered to a specific country or territory and display its flag, and that allows it to travel in international waters. It offers it certain protections. If a ship doesn't have a flag, if it isn't registered to a country, or indeed if it's sailing under a false flag, including a ship that's been expelled from its former flag country, there have been some bearing the flag of non-existent shipping registered, well, then it's not registered to a country, it's deemed to be stateless, and in the UK government's view, such vessels could be targets for raids by military forces, including, it's said, the Special Forces Special Boat Service.
Can I ask you finally, we're getting all your legal expertise this morning on a number of different stories. There are so many around. It's the front page in the Mail. It's also obviously covered in most other newspapers. It's the case of Abu Zubaydah. Now, he is a man who's been represented by Lord Hermer. He is a terror suspect and he's received a substantial payout from the UK, and it's to do with questions that were asked of him when he was under significant distress in Guantanamo Bay. He is still detained. If the UK has made that payout, is there then a case that he ought to be released? Because he doesn't have his freedom at the moment.
That's really a matter for the Americans, whether he's going to be released or not. They obviously must say that he's a threat to them or to the world, and that's the reason why he's detained. But that's not what this case is about. As you say, this case is about compensation. He sued the UK government, not because the UK government was involved in detaining him, but because the UK government assisted in the sense that they provided help. They are alleged through security services to have provided questions that could be asked of him and general support. And the question for the courts in the United Kingdom was whether that was the responsibility of the United Kingdom. And the Supreme Court, agreeing with the Court of Appeal, although by a majority of 4-1, said he could sue in the United Kingdom. The claim that he was bringing wasn't appropriate to be brought in the 6 different countries where he was detained before he went to Guantanamo Bay. So it's a question of English law, and since that decision, which was obviously under the Conservative government and more than 2 years ago, he's been negotiating through his lawyers with the UK government, and we gather they've agreed to pay him a sum of compensation.
Although we don't know what that sum is. Joshua Rozenberg KC, thank you as ever for a legal rundown of the big international stories today. Much appreciated.